Something to make you look around and say, hey, you know what? I live in a pretty great country. President Trump is calm, on point, on his game. And unlike the last guy, he is competent and coherent.
Come on, man.
We're not bending the knee anymore. We're here to take a stand for God and country.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
It sure is. Welcome aboard the Truth Train, my friends. Live from the heartland, fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom. Who do you want in your foxhole? It's an important question, is it? Just breaking daylight. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get moving here today. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida sent one of his top deputies to California to bring back the illegal alien accused of killing 3 people last week in a horrendous crash on the interstate. He's not playing around. Number two, seems that Elon is tossing in the towel on a third party in America. Now is focusing, at least the rumor is, on getting J.D. Vance elected in 2028. Guess he realized just how bad Gavin Newsom is, too. And number three, let's start with this. Playing stupid games gets you stupid prizes. And the Democrat Party is learning this in real time. Ratings plunging as they continue to embrace disastrous stances on common sense policies. For the first time in a long time, the Democrat Party has no front runner for the 2028 election. No one who polls 25% of the vote. No one the registered voters and the Democrat Party trust to represent them going forward. The party can't figure out whether to put the interests of the average American first or cater to the ever-increasing number of radical lunatics. And CNN's head pollster, Harry Enton, really sounds the alarm. Here he is.
Is no front runner. Nobody wants to put anybody up at the top of their ballot list is because at this particular point, the Democratic brand is in the basement. It is total and complete garbage in the mind of the American public. The Democratic Party's net favorable rating, record lows in all three. Wall Street Journal, 30 points underwater. CNN, 26 points underwater. Gallup, 26 points underwater. And that is being driven in large part by discontent within the Democratic base. The Democratic base wants something different.
Yikes. And that's coming from Chicken Noodle News, a corporation that really wants the Democrat Party to be doing a lot better than it is. Historian and one of my favorite political commentators, Victor Davis Hanson, makes the problem even more crystal clear. Here he is.
I do think it's collapsed because by any classical definition, Mark, they lost the 2024 popular vote, the Electoral College vote. They don't have the Congress, they don't have the White House, they don't have the Supreme Court. They're 30-70 on the 30 side of all these issues from crime, the environment, energy, the border, illegal immigration. And they're frustrated. They're angry because now Donald Trump is doing something they never imagined anybody would do. He's not treating the symptoms of the progressive pathology. He's talking about the sources. So he's going after the institutions that indoctrinate people in the university, NPR, PBS, the elite law firms, and that's setting them on fire.
Setting them on fire. Well, to put it mildly, the Democrat Party is in serious decline, and they think the only way out is to continue to fight everything that President Trump is doing, even though that means they have become the party of crime. Crime. They have to defend illegal aliens getting commercial driver's licenses, even when it costs Americans their lives. They have to oppose law enforcement cleaning up crime on the crime-addled streets of D.C., even when it keeps Americans from getting mugged and raped. To say the party has lost their moral anchor is an understatement. And while the Trump administration doubles down on the right thing, here's Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy on enforcing English proficiency tests for truck drivers. It's an important thing to hear. Here it is.
Making sure you speak the language. And by the way, that has been the rule of the road. You got to speak English. What happened, though, is Democrat administrations have said, well, if you violate that rule, we're going to give you a slap on the wrist. What we said is, no, we're going to put your vehicle out of service. And probably that's a big thing. The last administration had a sick set of ideals about we want to let as many people from around the world into this country, and then we want to let them in and compete with American men and women in some great jobs that are family supporting and drive the wages down of those jobs, but also endanger Americans' lives while they'll do it, whether they're the southern border, whether they're cartel members, whether they're criminals, sexual predators, drug dealers, or truck drivers that come into this country. The last administration didn't give a damn about the safety and the well-being of the American people.
and the safety and the well-being of the American people. As much as we focus on the last administration, it's important to remember that this didn't start with Joe Biden's ineptitude. It hasn't ended with him either. Democrat leaders across the country, whether it's Gavin Newsom or the mayor of D.C., they think that the winning strategy is to go soft on crime at the expense of American voters like you, just in order to stick it to Donald Trump. It really is a strange strategy. Astounding the reaction that D.C.'s Democrat leaders have to having their streets cleaned up. It's like they took pride in the rat infestations that our nation's capital had become. Instead of wanting it to be the shining beacon that it should be, that shining city on the hill, they don't want that. Members of the Trump administration went down to Union Station yesterday to throw a luncheon for the National Guard members protecting our capital. And Vice President Vance, well, he had a couple of things to say. Listen.
This is the national, cultural, and political capital of the world's greatest nation, and you talk to people, black, brown, white, so many of them are afraid to bring their kids into its public spaces. It's a shame. It's a blight. It actually should make every American ashamed that the world's leading superpower, our national capital, was unsafe for families to walk around at night. That is a disgrace. We don't think that it's acceptable, and thank God we have the presidential leadership to change it, and that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Yeah, these are exactly the kind of Americans that Democrats don't listen to. They don't want to hear that if you're scared of taking the subway, they just want to talk about diversity and inclusion without mentioning that they think criminals should be the ones included from a diverse background. Pro-crime protesters tried to drown out Stephen Miller while he was talking. And per usual, he let them have it, as only Stephen Miller can, articulating and filleting them in real time. Here he is.
For too long, 99% of this city has been terrorized by 1% of the city. And the voices that you hear out there, those crazy communists, they have no roots, they have no connections to the city, they have no families they are raising in this city, they have no one that they are sending to school in this city, they have no jobs in this city, they have no connections to this community at all. But they're the ones who've been advocating for the 1%, the criminals, the killers, the rapists, the drug dealers. And I'm glad they're here today, because me, Pete, and the Vice President are all going to leave here, and inspired by them, we're going to add thousands more resources to this city to get the criminals and the gang members out of here. So we're going to ignore these stupid white hippies that all need to go home and take a nap because they're all over 90 years old, and we're going to get back to the business of protecting the American people and the citizens of Washington, D.C.
Stupid white hippies. They represent the Democrat Party now in too many places, not the working class. These are leeches, people who don't have jobs, who only care about virtue signaling and not the effects of crime on the very people they claim to advocate for. That's the problem with these fringe elements of the Democrat Party, who are not Democrats, they're socialists, they're communists, they're radicals. They're not speaking for you and I. They're not. They're not even speaking for their own party most of the time. We'll take a break on more of this straight ahead. Good morning. Glad to have you on board the Steve Gruber Show. How bad is it that Democrats want to defend crime? I'm on my way to D.C. this week, and I'm going to give you an update right from the front lines. But how bad is it that Democrats want to defend crime and homelessness and homeless encampments and filth? D.C. Mayor Karen Bass says that deploying the National Guard to crack down on crime in her city has disproportionately affected black and brown people. That part's true because it's helping them live in safer neighborhoods. But I don't think that's the message she really wants to be sending. It ignores the fact that it's her black and brown residents who are being affected by the crime. They're paying taxes to live in neighborhoods where you can't walk at night. It's a disgrace, a disgrace. The media wants to catch D.C. residents screaming about dictatorship, but instead, this seems to be the response that they're hearing from people living there. Listen.
Look at my hat.
Happy to see it?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you got crime, you need police, you need extra protection out there. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. Common sense making a comeback. Or at least it is for average Americans. Not in sanctuary cities, though. No, not there. The Trump administration has made it clear undermining law enforcement and harboring illegal aliens is not okay. But Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, she's not having it. She's fighting back. She's fighting on behalf of people that are breaking the law. Gosh darn it. Here she is.
We're here again today because last week, Boston received a letter from the Attorney General of the United States on official letterhead from the federal government threatening to prosecute city officials and withhold federal funds unless we cooperate with carrying out mass deportations. Here is our response. Stop attacking our cities to hide your administration's failures. Yeah. Unlike the Trump administration, Boston follows the law. And Boston will not back down from who we are and what we stand for.
Yeah. What is it you stand for? What is it you stand for? Because if you're not willing to deport illegal aliens, you're not standing for the law. You're not standing for the rights of the people living in your neighborhoods that want to be safe and protected. You see, sanctuary cities make it harder for ICE and DHS to do their job to catch the bad guys and get them off the streets. Truly sick. Once again, we go to Stephen Miller for a clear, detailed explanation.
Let me just break down for your audience, Sean, how severe the crime committed by these sanctuary cities is. So you'll have a situation where local police in Boston will arrest an illegal alien who's a child predator. And ICE will then send what's called a detainer request or a hold request, and will say, don't release this person, hand them over to ICE, and we'll remove this child predator from our community. Instead, these sanctuary mayors will order the police department to ignore the federal request to set them free out of the jail, out of the prison, and they will go back into the community, and then they will reoffend. They will hurt another little girl, they will hurt another little boy, and then ICE has to spend weeks scouring the community to find this public safety threat. What they're doing, Sean, is evil, and President Trump will see that they are held to account for their crimes.
Yeah, this is why Americans turn their back on the establishment in November. Because in the words of Michael Jackson, they don't really care about us. Or should we quote Taylor Swift? Yeah, nah. Gavin Newsom can try to gerrymander all he wants, but the Democrats have lost the plot. They've sided against America First principles and Americans in general. It's left them floundering, disconnected from the regular folks like you and me. He's still not radical enough for the left-wing crazies. Not at all. So we're going to D.C. We're going to find out what's true on the streets there. We're going to look at the 75 dismembered homeless camps, disassembled, bulldozed and sent into dumpsters for distribution to where they belong, the landfill. How do you feel about this? I'll take your calls, your comments, your concerns, because look, the Democrats right now are siding with violent crime. They're siding with homelessness. They're siding with illegal aliens. That doesn't sit well with the average American. I know, because I can go to even places like CNN and see Harry Enton talk about it and give the numbers. Here's what's going to happen. I'll make this prediction quite clear again. Those in surrounding cities are going to see what's happening in D.C. because they're bringing in another 800 to 1,000 National Guard members. They're more than doubling the presence on the streets of the nation's capital. And what's going to happen? Crime is going to fall. Homelessness is going to go away. Crime is going to be eradicated completely in some areas. People are going to feel safe to walk in their neighborhoods again, even the ones that have been the most dangerous, like the 8th Ward, for years, right? And so Baltimore is going to say, hey, we like what they're doing in D.C. We want to try that. Philadelphia is going to say, hey, we want to try that, and so on and so forth. Make no mistake, the one job of the government is to keep people safe. That's what they're doing. It is a strange position to be against it. I'm going to tell you something that the weight loss industry will not. Your metabolism is not broken, all right? It's misunderstood. 99.9% of you have never been shown what's actually in control of it. Look, I'm here with a big announcement from my friends at My Pure Health Solutions. For the entire month of August, you can get 25% off a personalized weight loss program, your custom plan. Let's face it, August is go time. The kids have headed back to school. Summer's winding down. Life is getting back into a routine. It's the perfect time to finally take charge of your health and your life. But listen, let me be real for you for a second. If you're paying some national weight loss company and they're giving you the same cookie cutter plan they give to everyone else, you're not losing weight. It's because it's not customized to you. My Pure Health Solutions is different. They build a plan around you, your body, your lifestyle, your goals. No gimmicks. Not a one-size-fits-all, just real science, real strategy, and real results. And now through August 31st, get 25% off to jumpstart your transformation. Stop wasting time. Go to GruberHealth.com. GruberHealth.com, something that's made for you that will work for you. GruberHealth.com. My Pure Health. Real people, real plans, and real results. Give them a try today. You're going to be happy you did. You've heard the people on this program. I'll be right back. All right, let me ask you something here. I asked Ivy about this yesterday because I've been watching this. It makes no sense. Rock Palmbush, if you're in the room, I'd like your take on this as well. What the hell are these teams doing? The Vikings and the Patriots, apparently. They've got these little girly men running out there pretending to be cheerleaders. Blaze Chic. What's that?
Yeah, male cheerleaders. I know the Vikings.
But they're not male cheerleaders. Male cheerleaders are the guys that are like could lift a house, and their job is to throw the women up in the air and catch them so they don't hit the ground. That's what a male cheerleader. These are not male. These are women, guys acting like women. Blaze Chic and Louis Kahn. These are the two with the Vikings. It's what guy goes to an NFL game to see that? Well.
Not too many, I guess. I don't know.
How about zero? Is that come on. Is that the NFL fan base?
You see it in college all the time, and even sometimes in high school.
I don't see this in college. I don't see
you have male cheerleaders in college.
Yeah, again, male cheerleaders are the guys that have arms as big as my legs, and their job is to throw 100-pound girls in the air and catch them before they hit the ground. Not these whatever this is.
These are male cheerleaders playing the role of female cheerleaders.
Bingo, Anthony. Thank you for nailing it.
Okay.
So I think it's out. I think it's just dumb as hell. I mean, have these people learned nothing from Bud Light or Jaguar and what about Cracker Barrel? Good Lord, Cracker Barrel has now changed their whole logo and their whole deal to become more inclusive or something. These marketing people should be fired, each and every one of them. This part of the program brought to you by my friends at Puro Vet. They're putting a plan together over there at Puro Clean so that veterans can move to the front of the line and get a franchise, reduce franchise fees, extra support if you're a veteran and you want a company of your own. Go check this out, purovet.com. If you're a veteran or know one, tell them to go to purovet.com or call 855-PUROVET. It is an incredible program to help veterans get ahead in this deal, all right? I can cheer for that, not for the NFL cheerleaders that are whatever they are. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the program. Again, I know that this is kind of new, breaking news, but MSNBC is officially dead. And yes, I feel like we had something to do with it. MSNBC is now MS Now, My Source News, Opinion World, something. And what that means is all these high-paid left-wing windbags, they're going to be out of work too because of the new media. People that actually have the nerve to go out and tell the truth. People like me and my next guest, Brianna Morello, is here. Brianna, nice to have you here. You're part of this new media. MSNBC is dead. It's gone. It'll be, I don't know, a footnote in history of broadcast. Thank you for being here, first of all.
Thank you for having me. I know this is really exciting news because those liberal hacks over on MSNBC have been bashing the American people and trying to guilt them into just not following conservative beliefs or anything that puts America first. And so it's good to see the final stages of MSNBC going down.
Well, I think it's important that people like Nicole Wallace can now get the help they need. I mean, it's only fair that Nicole Wallace seeks professional help and maybe an intervention. I mean, and I say that somewhat laughing, but my God, these people see Donald Trump working on peace. You know, he touched Vladimir Putin too much. He doesn't touch his wife that much. I'm like, really? That's what you go with? That's what people wonder why the media has lost credibility. It's things just like that. You can just put a big circle on and go, what is wrong with you people? He's working on peace. It would be peace deal number 7, and you're talking about him the way he shook Putin's hand. That's really what they've got, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they also forget that Barack Obama shook Vladimir Putin's hand several times.
Yeah.
They don't seem to have the roles of that. But the reality is they don't want peace. They love the fact that there's war because they could cover it. They could sit there and just, shame Russia for this war against Ukraine. It doesn't matter what side you fall on this front. The reality is we should all want this war to end because thousands upon thousands of Ukrainian and Russian men have died. And this was all avoidable. To hear Vladimir Putin say it himself, something we've been talking about for a very long time, saying that if President Trump was in the White House in 2022, that this war would have never even started in the first place. Now, we've all known that, but the reality of it is the left didn't want to admit that. And now we now have it confirmed. And ultimately, we do know as well that Joe Biden never even got on the phone to try to talk to Putin to end this war. You can't do that as the world leader, supposedly, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
But you can't do that because the reality of it is you need to get on the phone with them, you need to have a conversation, you need to end it. But we kept funding it and we cut off all ties with Putin.
Yeah. We kept piling money in there. Look, let's be clear about this. When you have a government operation that spends billions of dollars the way we did, we don't have any idea where that money went. We have no idea where billions of dollars went. But I do hear that Zelensky and his circle are buying properties in places like Miami and London. Shocking, right? As money flows out of that deal. I mean, Ukraine's one of the biggest money laundering operations in the world. Everybody knows this. And we're piling money in there. It's wrong. Donald Trump should be praised for pursuing peace. And yet the left can't do it. If he brought peace to the world, the left could not give him credit, could they?
No, they couldn't. They couldn't because the reality is they don't want to give him credit for anything. He's been the villain for quite some time in their narrative, and they have to keep this going. The more and more we uncover Russiagate, the more we learn about how evil the left truly is and how all of this has been cooked up for a very long time. And it's just so devastating that they continue to do just that, but they don't realize, MSNBC, they haven't seen their ratings sink enough to realize the fact that the American people are no longer on their side. CNN, the New York Times losing subscribers. I mean, they just don't understand that the American people aren't with them. And so they go on their networks, they keep touting their perspectives on things, but their perspectives aren't the perspectives of Americans. And so, MSNBC hit the sale market, and apparently it looks like nobody is really interested in buying it. So NBC Universal is really struggling, and now they have to do rebranding and hoping, I'm sure, that something will make its way into their pockets. But the reality of it is I don't think it's worth anything.
It's a dead brand, and they did it to themselves. And so did the New York Times and the Washington Post and Chicken Noodle News that you mentioned. They all did it to themselves because they've destroyed their credibility internally. Over and over and over again. Anyhow, let me ask you, how did you get involved in being a reporter, a journalist, somebody who looks at what's happening and says, here's what I'm seeing and breaking it down for people? How did you get down this road?
Well, I used to work for a network you might have heard of, Fox News and Fox Business. And unfortunately, they decided to comply with an illegal New York City vaccine mandate. And so that was my end of my career at Fox. And I kind of ventured off into the independent world and started my own show and covering my own stories. And it's everything that Fox would never allow me to cover. So it's been quite eventful so far. But I'm very thankful for this opportunity, very thankful for the trust of the American people who have supported my work. I run a website called independentnewsroom.com, and it's where all of my exclusive stories go to first. And, it's been quite the journey thus far. I've worked in media for over 10 years now, and these last, I'd say, about 2.5 years have been the most eventful ones, the most meaningful ones, because I'm able to cover the stories that the corporate world is afraid to cover. I mean, I was the one who broke the Tulsi Gabbard story when Tulsi Gabbard was added to a terror watch list last summer because, well, the Biden regime didn't like what she had to say about Kamala Harris. And so they quickly put her on the TSA terror watch list. Networks were afraid to touch that story for weeks, but I wasn't afraid. And I was the one who even notified her team that she was on the terror watch list. So I think independent journalism is really more meaningful than the corporate world at this point because too many people in the corporate world are just afraid to break stories and they just go with the same safe stories that they know will rate well, and they don't care about breaking news anymore, doing real journalism. And so it's left kind of a great avenue for me to go through.
And for a lot of us, because you're right, there are stories that are just left uncovered that should be covered in depth. Here, not too far from my house, some Chinese students at the University of Michigan caught bringing in fungus that could destroy half our corn, wheat, and bean crop. It gets a little blip in national media. John Solomon, good friend of mine, a good reporter, got together and did 2 specials on it because it matters and people don't talk about these things. Tulsi Gabbard on the terror watch list. That's an important story because it's a political lynching. I don't care if they like the word or not. I used it. But that's a fact. They go after people and they're insulated by their friends at MSNBC and CNN. Finally, we're seeing all this. So the grand conspiracy is coming down, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And that's the good news because, they're losing, like we said, the subscribers. And the reality is independent voices, independent journalists are the ones who are gaining a much larger audience than the mainstream media is. I mean, my tweets alone, every single one I tweet away for a full day, I'm getting over 1 million impressions, which is much more than any of these MSNBC hosts could gather for themselves. And I also think it's really interesting. For a very long time, we didn't really have a metric system to see how the left was able to get away with the nonsense that they were doing. If you look at their X pages, a lot of these outlets, the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, they're insanely inflated. You'll see that they have millions and millions of followers, but on each tweet could scrape up maybe 50 likes at best. And so I think for a very long time now, the American people have been sold this lie that these outlets are actually credible and both popular, and a lot of Americans rely on them. I don't think that's the case. I think that the government's been obviously been subsidizing a lot of their subscribing bases. We see that with Axios and the government contracts that they had, and they were able to build the government millions of dollars for their services. We saw that get deflated. Then all of a sudden, PBS, once they get defunded, you start seeing it all collapsing in. I don't think any of these outlets were ever really popular amongst the American people. It was just artificially inflated.
I agree with that. Brianna Morello with me here, an independent journalist based in Dallas, Texas, who left Fox News because she said, you know what, I'm good. I don't need this shot. Hold that thought right there. We'll be right back. By the way, you can follow me at stevegruber.com. You can follow Brianna at all of the regular places. Her X account is the biggest place to go. One moment, we'll be right back on the Steve Gruber Show. All right, Brianna Morello with me. I want to start back up here, and I want to ask you about something. You talk about the fact that the media here, they're just dishonest. Even the Wall Street Journal has fallen into this cesspool recently, and I'm like, that was one place that you could count on in the past. That's gone too, isn't it? I mean, they're just blown. And it's because they all went to college together, same sororities, same fraternities. They want to go to the parties on Friday night with their liberal friends. They don't want to get kicked out, like some people have. If you cross the line, I even think that Bill Maher is probably threatened to get kicked out of the parties the way he's behaving by telling the truth at least on occasion. They're all in this together, aren't they?
Yeah, well, that's how it usually works. I mean, I remember when the vaccine issue was coming about, a lot of people were too afraid to talk about it going on at Fox and cover it fairly. And I kind of figured that was very suspicious because all the networks were afraid to criticize it at all. So it was very obvious that everyone was kind of in bed with one another. And so I think those days are coming to an end, though, because I think everyone sees it. I mean, Fox doesn't really break news anymore. If you look at their network, it's all safe. I remember when I was there, the topics were always like crime and immigration. And they always told us to stick with those because those rated really, really well. But they're also safe topics because it's something that their audience already knows about and it occupies their mind. And it's not like the corruption related issues. I mean, every now and then you see them cover Russiagate, but they're not uncovering things themselves anymore. It's independent journalists who are now doing the document digging, and it's unfortunate. Maybe it's the fact that there's been so many lawsuits filed against them, but you can't fear going after these corrupt individuals and reporting on it fairly. And so it's kind of disappointing to see, but they just don't do it anymore.
Yeah, the term that the left likes to use, truth to power. That's what we do. That's what you do. It's what a handful of brave people do every day out there. But at least cancel culture is not what it used to be either. So let me ask you about three things here, if we get to them all. First of all, we were talking about, before we came on here today, D.C. The cleanup of crime and homelessness and junkies and feces on the sidewalk makes people who live there happy. I mean, you can see one video after another, people that actually live in D.C. going, this is great. I love this. And the only people screaming about the fact that we're cleaning up D.C. are white liberals who don't live in these neighborhoods. They don't live in the 8th Ward of D.C. and have any idea how dangerous it is down there and the drugs and the problems and, Uber drivers getting murdered by 13-year-olds. They don't give a damn about that. For some reason, they want to make this an issue. People care about law and order and having a safe neighborhood. That's number one thing government should do. The Democrats don't care. This is why they're losing touch as well. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's the only thing our government should be doing. It's their only commitment to the people. We pay our taxes, so our government's supposed to secure us. That's the only agreement they have. There's nothing more that they need to do. But as you know, the left loves to overextend, but they don't want the government getting involved in this issue because I guess they love crime, but they don't want to actually have to live there. And all these politicians that are coming out and saying that it's really racist. I was watching Karen Bass earlier today say it's racist because they're only locking up Black and Hispanic Americans. The reality of it is they're locking up people who are committing crimes, whether their race is Black, Hispanic, or white. Doesn't matter. It's the people who are committing the crimes. And
Here's going to be the tell. Here's going to be the real tell, Rihanna. When people in Baltimore look at D.C. and go, hey, we want some of that. And the people in Philly go, can you clean up our town? And the people out in California go, we'd need some of that in San Francisco and San Diego. That's going to be the real tell. And I believe it's going to happen because, look, I just watched videos of guys walking down Pennsylvania Avenue, 7 in the morning. A guy said, former UPS guy said, you could never do this before. The homeless people are gone. The junkies are gone. I'm not stepping over fecal matter. Right. Because that's the way a city should be. We shouldn't just let our cities disintegrate because of leftist policies. Good luck to Ma'am Danny in New York, although I hope he wins because that way we can have a thing we can circle and say, look how bad it is when these idiots get a chance to lead. But I'm serious. When Baltimore and some of these other places call and say, look, we want one of some of that, that's going to be a big tell, isn't it? And I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I hope it happens. I hope it happens because the reality of it is I don't know if we could hit rock bottom even more than what we've already hit. Like New York City, for example, it is an absolute dump. I come from New York and I used to walk all the time back and forth to work and stroll around, and it was always
Sure.
safe then. Now it's not safe. I was in DC just a couple of days ago getting my nails done when a homeless person came up to me twice, two different ones, and it was very unfortunate because they were obviously not mentally well. But again, they shouldn't be able to just roam around the streets freely without there being any type of medical intervention there. And so
Right.
now that we have that going on, I hope it's long term. I know Democrats are trying their very best to shut that down, but I don't even know what the argument is on their behalf. What are you to keep saying? Crime is good? I mean, your fake crime stats have been
That's what I don't
exposed.
understand. That's what I don't understand. We want more crime. We want less police. No, the people there want the police. They've welcomed the National Guard. They want their neighborhoods cleaned up. What is it, 75 homeless encampments that have been taken and put into the dumpsters and hauled away? They're thankful, for God's sake. I mean, if you got kids that have to walk to school in that filth, or you're an elderly person that lives on a corner where the drug dealers and the gangs have been ruling that corner for 15 years, and you're afraid to go out onto the sidewalk or go to the store. They want this to happen. There's just no question about it, is there?
No, there is no question about it. And it's so strange, right? Because we're on the side of usually conservative beliefs and little government, but we're actually asking the federal government to get involved because Democrats have done just such a horrific job at protecting the people. And so I always think it's kind of funny that we're now cheerleading for this, but I mean, there's no other hope. Democrats don't want to do anything when it comes to public safety. They'd rather just sit here and put everyone on welfare and allow the streets just to go to heck. And Republicans are going to have to learn that Americans want their cities safer. They want their neighborhoods safer. And the best way to win elections is on that commitment.
And I thought the best way to get through all of this was to listen to Taylor Swift and James Comey. Come on, give me something on that. James Comey. This is not a man. This is the guy who was in charge of the FBI, for the love of God.
Yeah, and he released
a
a video yesterday, and he looked like he got into Hillary Clinton's tranquilizer draw. He was definitely not there all in the head.
Yeah, it's just shameful. All right, Brianna. Nice to meet you. It's the first time we really had a good conversation. Tell the folks where they can find you. You got a brand new book, by the way, about Melania. It's wonderful. Tell the folks.
Yes, we've got it's actually a photo book, and it was because I wanted to highlight how beautiful and stunning this woman is. And so we created a coffee table book. It's available right now for pre-order on Amazon. Just search my name, Brianna Morello, or you could look up Melania Trump, Elegance in the White House. It's a great book, a great gift to get. I highly recommend it because we need to celebrate this beautiful first lady, because they had us sitting here we weren't pretending, but the mainstream media told us that Jill Biden was gorgeous in her picnic tablecloth, and we all know she wasn't. So let's celebrate her.
Beautiful is back in vogue. I like it. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Greatly appreciate it. We'll take a break and be right back. It's the Steve Gruber Show. All right, do you remember the story? I'm going to take you back a little bit. Maybe you remember the story. There was this sheriff's deputy in Kentucky walked into the judge's chambers, all on camera because there's, surveillance cameras. And Sheriff Mickey Steins walks in and kills this judge, Kevin Mullins, right? Gunned down in his chambers last year by a local sheriff. Now, there was rumor that the judge, 54-year-old Kevin Mullins, was killed by the 43-year-old sheriff because there was some sort of an inappropriate sexual relationship with the sheriff's daughter. But it gets much worse now. Much worse. I say that because a rural Kentucky judge who was gunned down in his chambers last year by a local sheriff, possibly running a scheme where he demanded sexual favors from all sorts of women to get them out of trouble, or their husbands or boyfriends out of trouble. Taya Adams told News Nation that she would attend sex parties for District Court Judge Kevin Mullins and his friends in the small rural town of Whitesburg in exchange for money to get offenders out of trouble. She said she couldn't say no because she feared the retribution from the legal system and the Child Protective Services would take her kids. This guy ran a scheme. He degraded and belittled you. It was consensual, but it was the thing that we were so young, and then they used it against us to destroy our lives. And who would believe it anyway? Because the whole town was doing it. Nobody cares. They're all swingers. It's all a big party to them. It was just normal, she says. How repugnant is that? How repugnant and frightening. This part of the program brought to you by my good friends at Patriot Mobile. If you're not on Patriot Mobile, America's only Christian conservative network, you really are missing out. Today, if you sign up, you can help out Patriot Mobile deliver goods to folks that are good and doing the right thing. And you can get your first month free right now. PatriotMobile.com, promo code Gruber. PatriotMobile.com, promo code Gruber. Let's get to it.
Today, 1 in 5 working age
There's always something to make you look around and say, hey, you know what? I live in a pretty great country. President Trump is calm, on point, on his game. And unlike the last guy, he is competent and coherent. Come on, man. We're not bending the knee anymore. We're here to take a stand for God and country.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Yes, it is. Boy, we're ready to kick off another big hour here. Thank you for taking the time and dropping in live from the heartland and fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom. And always asking the question, who do you want in your foxhole? Welcome to the No Panic Zone. We've got three big things for you this hour. Here they are. Number one, seems Hillary Clinton could soon join her husband by getting her law license stripped. Join the ranks of disbarred lawyers, revoked. It seems fitting. Number two, CVS has been ordered to pay $290 million after a Medicare fraud scheme was uncovered by a whistleblower. Is anybody honest anymore? I mean, anybody? And number three, there's an effort underway coming from Donald Trump and this administration to clean some of the woke filth out of the major museums in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere and replace things like sexual fetish displays at the Smithsonian with actual relevant American history. And as predictable as it is, the left is freaking out. Yeah, there's actually, I saw this. I'll go verify it for you this week when I'm there. I'll pop by the Smithsonian, and there's this LGBTQ whatever display, and it's got fetish gear, bondage stuff. And it's right at the front, so everybody has to see it. The kids get to look at it as they come in. I'm like, really? Bondage gear, fetish gear for the children to look at. On CBS's Morning News, wow, CBS's Morning News, Tony DeCouple, I guess that's how you say his name. I don't know. I don't watch him. I don't care. But Tony DeCouple calls out the Smithsonian to have a real conversation. Gail King's pretty shocked. Listen.
American history shouldn't be a thing of reverence. The country's not above critique, but we shouldn't look at our history with contempt either. And I think there is some room for a correction back toward the middle. And in fact, Lonnie Bunch, who heads the Smithsonian, and Donald Trump and his administration, in a letter there, they are saying quite the same things. The mission of the Smithsonian is to forge a shared history, a shared future, not just context, but hope, to lead the country and communities together. That's essentially the same language that Donald Trump is offering here. And I do think there's room to say, in American history, what you are describing, that process of a journey toward greatness is very real. And we all have something to be incredibly proud of. And you talk about overseas. I think the world and its people, if you ask someone, is the world and its people better off because of the existence of America and its people? To me, the answer is unquestionably yes.
Of course it's yes. But they want to denigrate America at every turn. Well, there was racism. Look, America didn't invent racism. In fact, only about 3%, just under 3% of the slaves exported from Africa ended up in the United States. Far more ended up in the Caribbean. Far more ended up in South America. And even more yet ended up in Iran and Iraq and the Middle East. They don't teach you that, though. Of course, they want you to tell you that America is this terrible place that created slavery. We didn't. We inherited it. And 80 and a few years later, we ended it. Hundreds of thousands of people died to end the scourge of slavery, embraced by Southern Democrats. Less than 2% of Americans ever owned slaves. And for those of us here in the North that had family members that fought in the Civil War, how dare you? How dare you impugn our family names and our efforts to release slavery and end it? The Constitution called for the opportunity to end slavery in 1808. We just didn't do it because we had a series of weak Democrats. People like Franklin Pierce, James K. Polk, and other weak Democrats. Single-termers, terrible presidents, one after another, until Abraham Lincoln was elected. You know, he was the first two-term president since Andrew Jackson. Let me be clear about that, not Johnson Jackson. Anyhow, Scott Jennings dismembered the whole idea that we should have nothing but woke museums. Nothing but woke museums. It's time to present America as a shining city on the hill. Yes, do we have our problems and our downfalls and our mistakes? Sure. Are we perfect? No. But by God, we're better than anybody else, and we have a lot more to be proud of than to be ashamed of. Listen.
That it was our original sin. We also fought a war to eradicate it and to get over it as a country. And that was a necessary thing that happened, and a lot of people died, and we did eradicate it, and that's a good thing. I think what he's asking is, in our museums, what defines us? Are we going to be defined by the worst moment or the worst institution or the worst mistake we ever made? Or are we going to be defined by what we've done moving forward to get over it and to become the greatest nation on the earth? My belief is that he wants to look at these museums, not because he wants to do away with the idea that slavery occurred, but that he wants to ask a very simple question. Are we going to present ourselves as being exceptional or not? And I think he believes there is an effort by some to continue to try to define us from our worst moment instead of to try to focus and define us based on our best moments, which started when we eradicated slavery and began to move forward as the light of the world. And so that's what I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's no question about that, and he's right. Scott Jennings nailing it again. Look, think about your worst day. Dumbest thing you ever did, worst thing you ever did, whatever it might be. Maybe there's 2 or 3, maybe there's 10, I don't know. Whatever it is. Is that how your life is defined? No, of course not. No. Your life is not defined by your worst moment. Hopefully it's defined by your best moments. It can be tempered a little bit because something bad happened in your life, or you made a bad decision or a rash decision or a radical decision or whatever it is, but hopefully your life can be defined by your best moments. Same way the country should be judged, not on its worst moments. That's my take on it anyway. That's my opinion on it anyway. And I think that's really important. I do. I think it's important that we define ourselves on our worst moments. How about a little word from Hillsdale? Time is our most precious commodity. Many of you have asked how you can use it wisely to improve yourselves and those around you. One of the things is to find out about American history and America itself. Here's a perfect way. Hillsdale College offering over 40 free online courses on subjects like Western philosophy, the great works of literature, economics, the U.S. Constitution. I highly recommend the Introduction to Aristotle's Ethics, How to Lead a Good Life, where Hillsdale College President Larry Arnn guides you through Aristotle's teachings on human nature, the good life, virtues necessary for happiness. It's a self-paced learning exercise, so you can start whenever and wherever you'd like. 40 free different courses. Larry Arnn is wonderful. Victor Davis Hanson is wonderful. They're all great. Find out more. Go to gruberforhillsdale.com. Tell me what you think after you watch me. Look, it's free, and they're fun to watch. You know, that'd be short chapters, 5, 10, 15 minutes. They're great. No cost, easy to get started. gruberforhillsdale.com. gruberforhillsdale.com. Check it out. Support the people that support this program. I'll be right back. Time is our most precious. Yeah, always good to have you along for the conversation as we dive right into it here. Is it Thursday, man? The week's mostly gone already. It's remarkable. It's remarkable the speed with which these weeks pass when there's so much going on in the headlines. And just want to keep you up to speed on everything we can. Damian Brady is the Vice President of Research for the National Taxpayers Union Foundation. He joins me. Damian, how are you today?
I'm well. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Now, you think that we're too generous when presidents or vice presidents or other leaders of Congress retire or go on their merry way. You think maybe we should trim the bill for the former presidents and the perks that they get. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, a lot of people aren't aware of all the benefits that former presidents get. They do have some responsibilities pertaining to their office that linger on after they leave the White House. So back in 1958, Congress passed a law providing for office for personnel, or providing funding for an office and personnel and office equipment and things like that for former presidents. And the idea behind it was that at the time, former President Truman was down on his luck. And so they wanted to help him out to preserve the dignity of the office of the president after they leave the office. But, it turns out in recent years when his widow's papers were released that he really had a lot more wealth than was understood at the time. And now in the modern days, President Biden has just signed a $10 million book deal. Presidents can go out and make speeches and get hundreds of thousands of dollars a pop at that. And, the opportunities for all kinds of production deals with Netflix, such as Obama has. So these perks that we're continuing to provide today, we ought to have a cap on that. So that way we're running up about $5 million a year in some of these perks provided to former presidents. So it's time to rein that in, especially given our massive deficit and the $37 trillion in debt that we have.
Well, presidents and members of Congress like this term means testing, right? I don't think we have a former president, not in my lifetime, that was a pauper. So maybe they don't need any of that. I'll give them the Secret Service protection, obviously. But beyond that, do they really need anything?
That's a good question. Maybe we could continue to provide funding for an office for a certain period of time. Let's phase it out. Senator Joni Ernst has introduced the presidential a bill that would reform the perks provided for former presidents. It would cap the pension amount that they get, and it would limit the office expenses, especially if they have wealth above $400,000, which in the modern era they all have extreme amount of wealth when they leave the White House.
Yeah, I mean, good grief. Barack Obama became worth hundreds of millions of dollars, right? I mean, let's just be honest about that. Bill and Hillary Clinton seem to siphon plenty of money into their accounts, whether ethically or unethically, that's for others to determine, but they end up with a lot of money. They don't need my taxpayer dollars to pay anything. That's my opinion. Joe Biden's not broke either. I mean, he's got beach houses and other properties. Why would we concern ourselves with any of that? I agree with you. We need to trim that back. How much money did we spend? You say $5 million per? I mean, but then you've got presidents, vice presidents.
That's a little for all the current former presidents combined. We're spending about $5 million a year for their pension and the office perks that they get. And you mentioned former President Biden. He's an interesting case because he is eligible for a separate congressional pension that's on top of his presidential pension. He served in the Senate for so many years, and that also includes his 8 years as vice president, which is a Senate-based office. So he also gets a very generous congressional pension on top of that. So just with his pension alone, he makes more in retirement than the current president gets, $400,000.
Right, and Trump gives his away, but that's fine. So you get a pension for being vice president, a pension for being president, a pension for being a senator. If you had served in the House, you get a pension. You'd be 4X on this deal.
Yeah, there's not too many people in the past who've had so many years in the Senate and then as well serving in the White House as well.
No, but it happened. And so therefore, the Presidential Allowance Modernization Act, look, these guys don't need the money. And I don't care if they think they earned it. They're serving us, the American people. And most of these presidents spend too much money doing too many things that shouldn't have been done in the first place. So maybe they could atone for their spending spree by not taking this money.
And one thing to remember with all this, this bill was enacted in the past, just before Obama was set to leave the White House. He vetoed it just
Of course
just
he
before
did.
he was set to collect these benefits. So I think if you put this bill in front of Donald Trump, he would sign it in a heartbeat.
Right. You know, what's a Mike Pence? I don't know what his net worth is. He's not on your graph here, but he gets money too, doesn't he?
He is eligible for a pension as well. I don't have the amount of that on top of my head. We do have that information up on our website, though.
There you go. So, estimated net worth, by the way, I found this fascinating, of former presidents. Bill Clinton, $120 million, which I'm sure he came by legally. Barack Obama, $70 million. George W. Bush, $40 million. The oil man is running in third place here. Kind of interesting. And Joe Biden, $10 million. Of course, Joe Biden used to brag that he had the lowest net worth of anybody in Congress, which I thought was a strange thing to brag about. But I agree with you. I agree with you. Let's get these things reduced and get them off the books. I mean, honestly, we don't need to spend money on people that are, you know, flush, I suppose. Damian, greatly appreciate it. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, these wealthy former presidents, they don't need this extra income, and taxpayers certainly need relief.
Yeah, we got that right. Lower taxes on me first. Damian Brady, thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thanks a lot.
Good stuff. All right. The one big beautiful bill, tax reforms, marks an important step toward restoring a government that trusts the people to drive economic prosperity. We'll talk more about that. Lowering taxes, putting more money in your pocket. In fact, if you reduce taxes to zero, the economic boom in this country would be unprecedented. Of course, they're too scared to do that. They don't want to trust you with the money. How dare you be trusted with all that money? Yeah, we'll take a break. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Hillary Clinton slapped with ethics violations. Yeah, that's kind of a big deal. Hillary Clinton being slapped with ethics violations. She could join Bill in being defrocked as an attorney. Wouldn't that be fun? Complaint filed shortly after newly declassified documents shed even more light on her involvement in the Russia collusion narrative. Yeah. She's facing ethical complaints from a government watchdog group calling on the Arkansas State Bar to probe whether Clinton's involvement in the Russia investigation into President Trump should affect her ability to practice law in the state. The complaint filed by Democracy Restored this week cites the Arkansas rules of professional conduct involving dishonesty and prejudice to the administration of justice. Seeks a formal review of the conduct of Hillary Rodham Clinton Esquire, a licensed attorney in the state of Arkansas, in connection with her actions during the 2016 presidential election. Clinton's name resurfaced in recent weeks after the Senate Judiciary Committee released previously classified documents related to the Russiagate scandal. Within the release, there is an annex which suggests that Clinton approved a plan created by one of her advisors to release false information with the express purpose to smear her political opponent during a presidential campaign and distract from the news surrounding her own legal problems. Yeah, that should get you disbarred. Will it? I don't know, but it should. Will it? I don't know, but it should. Could today be a good day to be buying cryptocurrency? Maybe. Bitcoin was down to 112 yesterday, from down about $10,000 a coin from a week ago, right? So while the elites got rich off crypto, hardworking American patriots got left behind, but not anymore. Block Trust, IRA, is changing that, bringing the crypto revolution and opportunities to real Americans like you. Is today an opportunity? Maybe. Crypto is fueling President Trump's America First economic miracle. It's your chance to join. The Animus AI trading program is considered the best there is. Named the #1 crypto tech platform by Bitcoin Magazine, Block Trust IRA is there. Some clients seeing returns as high as 250%. Doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. You can get up to $2,500 in bonus crypto right now when you sign up. SteveGruberCrypto.com. SteveGruberCrypto.com. Still to come, Josh Phillips from the Epic Times will join me today. We're going to talk about what's happening with President Trump's new election law plan and so much more. This is The Steve Gruber Show. All right, getting back to it is, look, we try to bring you the most diverse conversation we can every single day. And the reason is because we want you to be the most educated when you go out there and talk to the world and interact with the world. I want you to be the most educated. We want educated voters. Quite simply, that's what we want. I mean, that's what the Founding Fathers and the Federalist Papers and everything else, you have to have a well-educated electorate. That's what we try to do here. Jeremiah Mosteller is an attorney policy director for Americans for Prosperity. He said Congress should follow tax reform with regulatory relief. I agree with that. Too many barriers blocking business, blocking opportunity, blocking individuals, blocking opportunity. Jeremiah, thank you for being here.
Hey, Steve, so excited to be here with you this morning. And I'm glad you gave your listeners a heads up because I am a nerd. So I love informing people and talking about issues like this.
Well, let's geek out then. All right, let's just go ahead and geek right out. The one big beautiful axe, it got tax reforms marked as important, the steps towards restoring a government that trusts the people to drive economic prosperity. But we've got to get a lot farther down that road, don't we?
Steve, that's right. I mean, the big, beautiful bill gave the American people one of the largest tax cuts in history. And so we are seeing that economic engine already kick off, unleashing prosperity, protecting liberty. But we now need Congress to step in and take an additional step because cutting revenue, cutting government blow is important. But to actually fuel what is important in America, which is innovation, we need the government to get out of the way.
Yeah, we need government to get out of the way all the time because government thwarts growth and economic opportunity and therefore economic prosperity. So what are some of the things you'd like to see happen here if you've got some specifics?
Yeah, so there's a few core things we want to see. The reality is that we need Congress to step back in and we need these executive agencies to stop trying to micromanage our daily lives. And so there's a few key reforms that Congress can pass, whether it's the REINS Act, which will take back the power, give it back to Congress to actually determine what the law is. The Guidance Out of Darkness Act is another great example, which will just provide some transparency and actually allow us to know what the regulations are, because a lot of the regulations are hidden in these secret documents that the agencies never publish.
Why? Why are they hidden? Why can we not see what we're dealing with? Why are they behind the curtain?
Well, Steve, the reality is the agencies only do what they're required to do. So since they're publishing guidance, not regulations, they don't have to be transparent about them.
So they just make rules that, and the problem is a lot of times you don't even know the rules. You don't until you get down the road somewhere and they say, oh, you can't do that. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? You can't do it. So we need to be transparent what the rules are. We have to have common sense as to why the rules are there. We can't have, oh, you know, you might hurt a tadpole, or gosh, you're contributing to climate change and other stupid things. Climate change explains everything, by the way. Too much snow, not enough, dry, wet, hot, cold. Climate change is magical. It explains everything, and therefore they can regulate it every step of the way. Where am I wrong?
Yeah. No, Steve, you were totally right. I mean, if we look at what the Biden administration did, it added 7.5 million words to our regulatory burden. And they tried to do everything from tell us how we could heat our homes, to the types of cars we could drive, to what foods we could eat. And so it's time for Congress to step back in and work with the Trump administration to help kind of fuel this deregulatory plan that President Trump has put into place, which is excellent. And we want to see Congress step in and help them do that.
Yeah. Where do we want to start? I mean, where do you want to start? Who do you talk to? Lobbyists control a lot of things out there, of course. Unions control a lot of things. A lot of things beyond your control. A lot of control taken away from even the voters, especially the voters, maybe, that have been disenfranchised every day of my life or every year of my life. There's less and less power to the voters, more and more power to the corporations that have basically bought government in large part, to the lobbyists who represent those corporations that have bought government in large part. I mean, there's a reason we have all these illegal aliens in the country. It's because these corporations want cheap labor. I mean, that's one of the big driving forces, and the Democrats want voters. They're not working for the folks. Neither side is working for the folks like you and I.
Yeah, well, Stephen, that's why we have to start with the average Americans. They know what's holding them back, and they know what can help their small businesses thrive. And that's one of our superpowers at Americans for Prosperity. Yes, I'm a policy nerd and I lead a team of 30 other policy nerds, but our superpower is we have millions of activists across the country that we hear from every day, whether they're the owner of your local brewery, the local convenience store in your neighborhood, or they're the Fortune 500 CEO and they just care about improving America. We hear from all of these people about how innovation is being stifled because of the regulatory burden they face from the federal government.
So we need to make changes here, but again, everything moves so slowly. Now, having said that, Donald Trump has tried to remove regulations, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, whatever they can get rid of. They want to get rid of regulations, burdensome regulations. I mean, look, you can't even dig a pond on your own property without, getting 27, pieces of paper to dig a pond that would amplify wildlife and waterfowl and aquatic life and do something good for the environment. You can't even do that without the government telling you when you're allowed to dig a pond from people that know less about digging ponds than I do, right?
Yeah. Well, Steve, I mean, it's a pretty simple fix here, and you mentioned it earlier, and you alluded to this. Our founders established a pretty clear system. Congress writes the laws, the executive enforces them. And what we're seeing now is the Trump administration reestablishing that. They're saying, hey, if Congress did not say do X, agency, you cannot do X. Get rid of that regulation. Let's focus back on what actually protects public safety and public health, and stop with all of these regulations that candidly are just fueled by political preferences or ideological desires, whether it's climate change, DEI, or whatever thing the Biden administration wanted to use to try and justify some of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can do better, Jeremiah, because we simply must. We simply must. We have to do better. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah. Well, Steve, I'm confident we can. President Trump has established a bold agenda, and folks across the country that we work with stand ready to come alongside their members of Congress and either force them to do this or praise them when they do the right thing.
All right. Jeremiah, thank you for being here. Greatly appreciate your input.
Steve, thanks for having me on your show. Looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Absolutely. There you have it. All right. And while that's going on, speaking of politics, Jeremiah laid the groundwork for this. Elon Musk giving up on his plans to start his own party. Elon Musk has an attention issue some days. That ADD thing can really chew a guy up. Trust me, I know. Giving up on the America Party. And apparently there's some rumor out there that he's considering supporting J.D. Vance. He stayed in touch with Vance in recent weeks. He's acknowledged to associates that if he goes ahead with forming a political party, he would damage his relationship with the vice president. You see, it seems to me that Elon Musk might not like the two-party system, but he likes communists a whole hell of a lot less. And so, therefore, there's a lot of conversations that J.D. Vance will get the support of Elon Musk, and Musk will back him financially if he runs for president in 2028, though his allies told the newspaper that he could change his mind as midterm elections approach. Really what we knew is to have Elon Musk on board supporting the midterm elections. By the way, in Texas, they got that done. They are moving forward with redistricting, which could bring 5 seats into the Republican column and put Jasmine Crockett out of work. Oh, that's too bad. Jasmine got her pink slip. Sure did. That happened. All right, coming up after the break, Josh Phillips will be here from the Epic Times. Always appreciate him. President Trump's new election law plan on its way. We'll look at that in just a moment. All right, jumping right back into the thick of it, Josh Phillip is an award-winning chief investigative correspondent for the Epic Times, host of Epic TV's Crossroads. He's been here a number of times in the past. Good to have you back, Josh.
Hey, Steve, always a pleasure.
Always good to have you here. Look, first, the headline that I just let folks know, the Texas redistricting did get through the Texas House yesterday after those Democrats had fled the state. So that's step one in hopefully having the Republicans hang on to the House in the midterms. Could bring them 5 seats. Governor Abbott says if California screws around much more or tries to game the system on their end, they can add 5 more. I think that Jasmine Crockett lost her job yesterday. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's right. She just lost her district. So, I mean, you know, we'll see if people continue voting as they have been. You know, as you mentioned, though, California Governor Gavin Newsom, he's saying he's going to redistrict California. Basically, he wants to do it in a way that takes away the 5 additional seats that Texas just got, you know, possibly for Republicans. But people are pointing out, even before, okay, let's put it this way. Right now, without California redistricting, the percentage of representation, you know, between Republican and Democrat is about the same. You have, I think, about 17 or 18% Democrat representation in Texas now with the current redistricting. California currently has about 17, 18% Republican representation, despite having about 40%, 40% Republican voters. So, how much more are they going to change it? They've already been doing what they're accusing Republicans of.
Well, they have for years. They've codified mass mail-in ballots. Those ballots can be counted for weeks after the election's over. There's no photo ID required. There's no chain of custody for ballots. California has been on a crusade to undermine valid voting integrity for years and years, and they're screaming about democracy, please. Oh, and by the way, in order for him to get this through, he has to have a special referendum that would change the Constitution because they have a districting commission. Yeah, anyhow, so that's going on. All right, so let's talk about...
Do you think it's a living document, right?
Yeah, that's what they think. In California, maybe it is. At the federal level, it's really not. All right, so let's talk about President Trump's new election law plan, because this all is part of what we've got. But he would like to get rid of mass mail-in ballots, which would make sense. Look, my belief has always been, Josh, since 2020, that it wasn't about the voting machines, but it was about literally millions of mass mail-in ballots for which we just learned 74,000 in the state of Arizona were put through, even though they didn't meet the requirements of having matching signatures. And there's supposed to be a trail of when it goes out and who it's mailed to, and then when it comes back. And your numbers would be pretty clear. More would get mailed out than would ever come back. And yet somehow in Arizona, they got more back than they mailed out. It's a remarkable thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible. The ballots just reproduce on their own, out in the wild. But I think you're right. So Trump wants to get rid of mail-in ballots altogether. We'll see how that affects the military. That's the big question. My personal recommendation would be set up polling stations at military bases and let the troops vote at actual polling stations. We'll see if that would actually work. But I think he also wants to get rid of the voting machines. He wants to replace everything with paper. He says it's more efficient. You get the results by the same night. He says it costs less money. But on your point about mail-in ballots, it was a combination of problems. You have universal mail-in ballots. They do that based on voter rolls. They don't clean the voter rolls. Back at my old apartment in the 2020 election, I got probably 3 ballots that weren't even mine. I assume they were from former residents. And so, you have that. Then you have the anonymous ballot drop-off points. Then they legalize ballot harvesting so people can grab them up and drop them off. And then they eliminate even signature verification. If you remove every safeguard effectively for a safe election, how do you expect to have a safe election?
Well, they don't. That's what they've done in California. They don't expect a safe election, nor do they want one. Same is true in Illinois. Same is true in Massachusetts and other far left states, deep blue states. They can't win on the message, Josh. You know that, so they have to find another way to get it done. I think Florida might be the measure of success. They're usually done by 11 o'clock at night. They're up, they're down. Now, they start counting their mail-in or absentee ballots 9 days in advance. However you look at that, it's done. And everybody seems to trust Florida elections. 2000 was a fiasco. And after that, Florida set out to get their elections right. They further fueled it when they got Republicans into office. It's a state you could emulate. And therefore, how is California out there still voting weeks and weeks later in little districts and, it's weeks and weeks and weeks to count votes? How convenient. In Minnesota here a few years ago, they found a trunkload of ballots just in time to defeat the Republican incumbent senator. It's all games. It's all dishonest. It's all election cheating. It's what it is. Call it for what it is. It's rigged. Josh, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, well, and it's ridiculous, too. Someone's winning the election. The rival says, hey, we found, 2 bins of ballots in the back of my car. We got to count them now. And it's insane. I think you're right. Florida is the model. I will add to that. Currently, there is a case at the Supreme Court through Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton, which is trying to argue against Illinois on counting ballots after Election Day. They can count up to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That might be able to overturn that. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right, Josh Phillips, you can catch him at Epic Times. You can watch him on Crossroads. It's a great program. Josh, always appreciate you being here, my friend. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
There you have it. I'm going to be seeing the people that work in his company, actually, this coming week. Just invited to meet the Epic Times. Like those folks a lot. They tell the truth. They work hard. It's what we need in America. Hard-working, honest journalists. You can find some over at the Epic Times every day. I'll take a break and be right back here on the Steve Gruber Show. All right. right, it's almost down to, we're getting close, folks. The baseball season coming down to it. What's Brock got for us? Here he is.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. 14 games in Major League Baseball yesterday. Among the winners were Detroit, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and Arizona. At the Little League World Series in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, there were 4 games yesterday. Chinese Taipei beat Venezuela 7-3. Aruba shut out Japan 3-0. Connecticut knocked off Nevada 7-3. And South Carolina scored 6 runs in the bottom of the 7th inning to rally past South Dakota 7-6. In extra innings. In the NFL, Dallas Cowboys head coach Brian Schottenheimer told the media yesterday that he expects Pro Bowl defensive lineman Micah Parsons to be in uniform and play on opening night, which is September 4th, against the world champion Philadelphia Eagles on the road. Parsons has been holding in for a new contract. He's in the final year of his rookie deal. And the NFL has suspended San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Demarcus Robinson for the first 3 games of the regular season, stemming from a DUI incident last fall. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right, Brock, thank you for that. So much going on. Good stuff happening. CVS Caremark ordered to pay $290 million after Medicare fraud scheme was exposed by an Aetna whistleblower. Let's see. The Philadelphia court tripled the damages after they found out that the pharmacy benefit manager overcharged Medicare by $95 million. Yeah. Ordering CVS Health Pharmacy Benefit Manager Casemark to pay $290 million. Yeah. Sarah Banke, a former Aetna actuary, alleged that Caremark defrauded Medicare Part D by causing false drug cost reports to be submitted in 2013 and 2014. She should get a part of that, In my opinion, she should get part of that action. You bring $290 million back, here's $1 million for you. Here's $2 million for you. Here's for doing the right thing. Amen. Yeah. There you go. All right, coming up in the next hour, we'll have State Representative John Roth of Michigan, Jeff Wiggins, working on the citizen-only voting campaign. And, of course, Ivy will be here in all her beautiful self. You don't want to miss any of that, by God. It's the Steve Gruber Show, and I'll be back at the top of the hour. always something to make you look around and say, hey, you know what? I live in a pretty great country. President Trump is calm, on point, on his game. And unlike the last guy, he is competent and coherent. Come on, man. We're not bending the knee anymore. We're here to take a stand for God and country.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Well, it sure is, and I'm glad to have you here as we roll into another big hour. It's like ripping the top off a Christmas present, isn't it? You just never know what you're going to get, but good stuff is on the way. How about this? 3 big things this hour. Number 1, ranked and yanked. Lawmakers moved to ban alternative voting. That's called ranked choice voting, even at the local level. They can't get it signed by the governor because it's a great way to cheat, and they know it. Number 2, worms in the system. Worms in the system. What do we mean by that? Well, those Chinese students coming in from Wuhan trying to get pathogens, in this case, a certain kind of pathogenic worm that would destroy agriculture. Agri-terrorism, we call it. And number 3, the grand conspiracy. The grand conspiracy. It continues to unfold. John Solomon says more investigations into dirty dealers. James Comey. He hid the truth, folks. The world's tallest Boy Scout, the Swiftie. The Swiftie is going to get some swift justice. That's among other things. Here's something else John Solomon had to say about what's on the horizon, and he's been on the cutting edge of breaking news throughout all of these investigations. Here's what he's got. Listen.
Last week, we told you that the FBI had not 1, not 2, but 3 criminal investigations of the Clinton Foundation, but they were all ordered shut down by the Obama Justice Department. Remember the famous quote from Sally Yates, the Deputy Attorney General for Barack Obama, shut it down? Well, today we learned that there was another criminal investigation of the Clinton Foundation, not at the FBI, but at the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS. That too, well, it got shut down, ironically, in President Trump's first administration. We learned that from a lawsuit that's making its way, a whistleblower lawsuit, making its way through the U.S. tax court system. Now, we're going to have more documents on this coming up in the next couple of days, so keep an eye on justthenews.com. The protection racket around the Clintons, Hunter Biden, all the others in the Democratic Party at the same time they were smearing President Trump with investigations and false Russia collusion allegations, becoming more and more clear just how much a dual system of justice we have. These documents are up on Just the News right now. We'll have new ones coming out in the next 48 hours. All right.
JustTheNews.com. I don't mind promoting John Solomon. He is one of the greatest investigative journalists, maybe the best, of our time. Still living in the wild, not perverted to go all the way to the left. So it's, it's a big deal. So you got that going. All right, so let's talk about D.C. I'll be there next week, as you know. I've told you that I'll be there covering the White House. And who knows? Every week's a big week. We never know what's going to happen. On Monday, I do know this, though. I'll have a series of interviews with cabinet members. Special invitation for yours truly to go interview a number of cabinet members. I'm not sure which ones I'm going to get quite yet, but they're putting it together for me, and I'll have the list for you maybe before I go. Maybe not. But I'd like to talk to Brooke Rollins about the ag terrorism we're seeing here in Michigan. I'd like to talk about that. I'd like to talk about that with her. Sean Duffy. Obviously, we want to talk about these illegal aliens getting CDLs and getting people killed because they can't even read the road signs. They can't speak the language. They should never be behind the wheel. How do we allow this to happen? That's somebody I'd like to talk to. And so on and so forth. So we'll be talking about, if we have the list by tomorrow, I'll share it with you on Free for All Friday. And if we don't, well, then you'll just have to join me next week and find out who we get to talk to. All right? Moving along, let's talk about D.C. a little bit more. Congressman Tim Burchett from Tennessee, who I really like. He should be a senator. He's about as funny as John Kennedy of Louisiana. He drop kicks Dana Bash for suggesting the National Guard go to Memphis, Tennessee, instead of the nation's capital. It seems she doesn't understand how it works. Here it is.
Are you okay with your state's National Guard resources being used to deter crime here in Washington? And why not in your home state?
Yes, ma'am, I am. Washington, D.C., of course, is a creation of the Congress, and I believe it's within the president's constitutional purview. And, lawlessness outbreaks. There's a lot of political wherewithal in Memphis, Tennessee. It has really a history of the political, I guess I won't say political gangs, but political families have run that town, and they've run it into the ground. And some of
So
the
why not
nicest
send
people in the
National Guard
world you'll
troops
find.
there? It's a red state.
It's not a federally created environment. Washington, D.C. is a federally created environment. It is our nation's capital. When people pull in to Washington, D.C. and they see someone going to the bathroom on the curb, or they see crime, or you see Washington, D.C. bureaucrats come to the oversight committee and tell us that there is no crime, yet during that very hearing, a group of thugs carjacked a kid in a Jeep. And another thing, I think they're just out of touch. If you go back and look at that meeting in oversight, Dana, they had 6 white men explaining to the committee, and I made I asked, I said, why are there not any people of color? Why are there not any black folks on this thing? And the activists in the crowd, who were neighborhood people that were the victims of all this, they were nodding in agreement. I think you've got a bureaucracy in Washington that's out of touch with what's going on with reality.
Yeah. Out of touch with what's going on in reality, including Dana Bash, who doesn't understand Washington, D.C. is not a state. It doesn't work that way. You can't just send federal troops into a state. There has to be a lot behind that. I mean, it's been done. President Eisenhower sent the National Guard, federalized them, sent them into Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957 to desegregate the school system there, with 9 black kids going into an all-white school. The governor of Arkansas tried to block it. He was stopped for that. And speaking of D.C., one more from Stephen Miller today. I just can't help it. Crushing the elderly hippies that are trying to keep D.C. frozen in fear, these fools. Listen.
For too long, 99% of this city has been terrorized by 1% of the city. And the voices that you hear out there, those crazy communists, they have no roots. They have no connections to the city. They have no families they are raising in this city. They have no one that they are sending to school in this city. They have no jobs in this city. They have no connections to this community at all. But they're the ones who've been advocating for the 1%, the criminals, the killers, the rapists, the drug dealers. And I'm glad they're here today, because me, Pete, and the Vice President are all going to leave here, and inspired by them, we're going to add thousands more resources to this city to get the criminals and the gang members out of here. We're going to dismantle those networks, and we're going to prove that a city can serve for the law-abiding citizens who live there. We are not going to let the communists destroy a great American city, let alone the nation's capital. And let's just also address one other thing. All these demonstrators that you've seen out here in recent days, all of these elderly white hippies, they're not part of the city and never have been. And by the way, most of the citizens who live in Washington, D.C. are black. This is not a city that has had any safety for its black citizens for generations. And President Trump is the one who is fixing that with the support of the Metropolitan Police Department, the support of the National...
He's the one fixing that, as President Trump, protecting the black citizens. He's so right. Stephen Miller, filleting once again the idiotic talking points of the left. God bless America. I'll be back with State Representative John Roth after this, all right? Putting the finishing touches on common sense, fiscally responsible budget. All right, after this. All right, we're busting through it now on a Thursday. You know, free-for-all Friday, not too far away. A chance for you to join the conversation on the Patriot Mobile Common Sense Hotline. We do it every Friday. We take calls from all over the United States, and we enjoy doing it. We get to hear from you. What are your opinions on anything that's happening, right? Anything, whether it's here in our home state of Michigan or in the nation's capital. Of course, we broadcast nationwide. This program is broadcast nationwide every day, and of course, I also broadcast nationwide every day at 3 o'clock on Real America's Voice with America's Voice Live. You can have me twice a day. Gosh, that must make you feel good. I'm joking, of course. My next guest is State Representative John Roth, representing Michigan's 104th District. John, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning. What another lovely day here in Lansing.
Yeah, I was on the floor there yesterday. I enjoyed
I know.
it.
How did I miss you? I didn't get to see you. I apologize. I would have loved to said hello.
Well, don't worry. We'll make our time through again. And I got to say, I got to apologize to Cam. He's a little upset with me about arguing about forest fires, but we're going to let that go. And Cam, Mr. Cabot, we'll get them back on the air. We'll get that buried. Anyhow, Michigan House Republicans proud to announce that you're putting the finishing touches on what you call a common sense, fiscally responsible budget plan for next year. Okay, what's in there? Why do we like it? Why are the Democrats going to hate it? How about that?
Absolutely. One thing we're doing is definitely looking at the overall dollar figure. We cannot have an $84.7 billion budget. That is just, it's out of whack. It's out of balance. It's not right. So we are reducing that, of course. We're looking for any kind of waste, fraud, and abuse, or overlapping programs, or anything that doesn't make sense anymore. And we really have gone through it multiple times. Obviously, it's taken us a little longer, and people are tending to criticize. Well, mostly the Senate is criticizing us for how long it's taking. But we're doing a really deep dive, because the last thing we want to do is do a reverse budget. A colleague of mine that I talked to, his first term in the House in 2010, the school aid budget, they actually put it out in July and then had to take away $500 per student as the year went on. That is not something we want to do in any way, shape, or form. We want to make sure it's fiscally responsible when we get it out.
It's important. It is. Look, I keep seeing new plans to raise taxes. In fact, I heard Mike Duggan say this. He's running as an independent, but he is a Democrat, of course. But he's running for governor. Raise taxes for the roads again. How many times we get to raise taxes for roads that never get fixed and infrastructure that never gets taken care of? And I'm not picking on him exactly, but look, we've heard this. And it doesn't go anywhere. And in fact, staying closer to home with the Democrats there, rumor is that they're not getting along with the governor right now. They don't really care much for what they've kind of lost touch. They're estranged a little bit. And in fact, if I put my finger in the air, I might start to wonder if they would actually shut the government down in Michigan just to block you guys from doing the right thing. What do you think?
I think that's definitely possible. We heard that early on. They were saying that we wanted to shut the budget down, or shut the government down, by not completing a budget. It's been them talking about shutting down the government ever since we started in the majority this term. So that's not our desire in any way, shape, or form. Will it happen? Possibly, because after the July 1st deadline of a school aid budget, they just said, we'll see you in September. Last week, they showed up for one day and they did 5 or 6 bills and went home. They didn't even let us know they were coming.
If I'm not mistaken, what's the date today? Today is the 21st of August, right? So if I'm not mistaken, the budget is due before the end of September. If you guys aren't making much progress now, you're going to run out of time.
Yeah, it's possible. That's not our desire. But, the other thing happens here, Steve, is deadlines. The real official deadline is that October 1st or September 30th deadline. We don't do anything unless we do deadlines down here. If you remember the ESTA, the earned sick time and pay, and the minimum wage and tip wage that was happening, we passed that changes, the modifications to it at 11:30 at night, the night before the deadline. So this town loves deadlines. It's not my desire, I'll tell you. I've got part of the budget. I would like to get that done well in advance of that. But for some reason, deadlines are the thing that finally makes us get it done.
Yeah, otherwise nothing gets done is what you're pointing out, obviously. Nothing gets done. So what are the priorities then? Obviously, but what are the things that you do not want to see cut? What are your priorities? And honestly, are we ever going to get the roads fixed? I mean, we spend $30 billion more a year than Pennsylvania. I talked to people about this. I talked to Speaker Hall about this on the program. I talked to, your other Republican colleagues on the program about this. $30 billion more, and I feel like we get shorted in the deal. Anyhow, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I agree. Road funding, if we do anything with road funding, it can't include a tax. It's just something that we are hard set against. We want to make sure we're taking care, of course, the elderly, the seniors, the veterans, the people with disabilities. That's not even an option. We're not doing that. We're just trying to make sure we have a fiscally sound budget that does not go up. We need to start going backwards in our annual budget. This way we're going right now, increasing by about $12 billion over the last 2 years in the budget, can't continue to happen.
It's insane. Yeah,
it's insane.
We look, we have the highest, I believe we have the highest personal income tax of any state in our area. That's why Ohio and Indiana eat our lunch. Tennessee kills us. We've got barriers to companies coming in. Now we've got right to work getting thrown out, prevailing wages. It's just anything to kneecap the economy seems to be what the Democrats want to do. Anyhow, we're going to keep an eye on it. I hope they don't shut the government down, but the rumblings are that the Democrats will shut the government down in Michigan and try to blame you for it. I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
David John Roth, everybody. I'll take a break. Jeff Wiggins back after this. All right, Anthony, here's a question for you. You ready? I don't think you're going to know the answer. I don't. But you know what bush meat is? Bush meat. Brock, do you know what that is?
This is like the people who eat roadkill.
But go on.
Anthony's actually not too far off. He said people that eat roadkill. In a way, bush meat is like monkeys and things that are found in Africa, right? Just random things that, and sadly, a lot of these little creatures in the jungle that get eaten and so forth carry disease, a lot of it, and it's where a lot of illness comes from. Well, check this out. In Detroit, Michigan, Dateline, from Michigan News Source, my news company, I got this headline: officials intercept African bush meat in Detroit at the DTW. It's illegal in the U.S. Refers to meat from wild animals like bats, primates, rats, monkeys. 11 pounds of rodent meat from Togo in West Africa. Days later, agents discovered 52 pounds of primate meat, so there you go, monkeys, declared as antelope from Gabon in Central Africa. In addition, agents turned over the bushmeat to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Each traveler involved in the bushmeat smuggling paying a $300 fine. It ought to be a $3,000 fine and rejection on admission to the country. Get out. Recent bushmeat interceptions are significant, bringing attention to the illegal importation of bushmeat. Bushmeat causes dramatic illness. It causes pandemics in the past. It has. Anyhow, it's you know me. I hunt. I'll eat all sorts of things, but bushmeat. I'm not eating rats. All right, or crickets or anything else. There's your education, Anthony and Brock. Bushmeat is like not what's for dinner around here.
I mean, if I see a good raccoon on the side of the road, that's one thing. But monkeys.
I mean, look,
monkeys from Africa, or you know,
you got a fresh raccoon on the shoulder. I mean, I get it. Who can pass that up?
Yeah.
I've actually eaten raccoon at these. You've been to wild game dinners and when you were younger, weren't you, Anthony? A couple?
Maybe.
Yeah. They eat raccoon at those things. They're good. Raccoons, squirrels, muskrat. Crow? Come on, man. Nobody eats crow except for the Democrats. Well, my next guest I've known for a number of years because he's been in the mix, if you will, in orbit there around Lansing, the state capital, involved with different organizations and efforts. And now he's trying to put together an initiative to get on the ballot that'll be citizens only voting in Michigan. Kind of an important thing, don't you think? If you're not a citizen, you shouldn't even have to put this in the law, but you know, if you don't, Well, you know what happens. Jeff Wiggins is with me. Jeff, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Really appreciate it.
All right, so a ballot initiative, citizen-only voting. Big campaign launching here in Michigan. You're gathering signatures now, I assume, is where we are in the process. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, you've seen it play out across the country, Steve, for the past few years. This argument over photo ID when you go in to vote or who can vote in our elections. And it's pretty common sense. We think only citizens should be voting in Michigan elections. We think that you should have to show a photo ID when you go in to vote. And we think that the Secretary of State has a responsibility to clean those voter rolls frequently to make sure that non-citizens aren't voting in our elections.
Yeah, I think that would be an 80-20 issue to say the least. Here, you know, what comes to mind is all of the games they play in California when you say that. And here's why. I believe you're going to be successful in getting this done. I believe that citizen-only voting would probably pass in California. They would just never put it on the ballot for people to decide because here's my concern. In California, you have all of these games being played. No ID. You know illegals are voting. They can count mass mail-in ballots for weeks after the election's over. The point that I'm making here is that disenfranchises voters in other states, including our own. Because if California is allowing illegal aliens to vote, it dilutes the vote of actual citizens in other states. I think there should be a federal law mandating that you can only vote in a federal election if you are an American citizen, period. But I don't know if you can get there because you have this problematic little document called the Constitution that says voting is up to the states, right? So you've got that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can have federal requirements, but they only pertain to federal elections. And that's kind of what this constitutional amendment will do in the state of Michigan. It says in any state and local election, you would have to show a photo ID to vote. You have to be a citizen to vote. And Steve, you hit on the point earlier. Having non-citizens vote in our elections disenfranchises actual voters, actual residents here, because we saw that last cycle. We saw a Chinese national down in Ann Arbor voting in our elections. And we wouldn't have found out about it unless he turned himself in. Right, yeah. Exactly.
And I will go back to what I've been saying since right after the election of 2020. A lot of people focused their sole attention on the voting machines. Okay, that's fine. That was never my attention. My attention was always on those stacks of mass mail-in ballots from which the origin, come on, you don't know where they've been or who filled them out, citizen, non-citizen, automatically coming off the Xerox machine. I just dated myself by saying Xerox machine. It's okay. The fact of the matter is you don't know where they're coming. You need election integrity. I think it does start with things like making sure the people that cast votes are citizens, but there's more to be done, isn't there?
Absolutely. And you said it, this is a very popular initiative. It is an 80-20 issue, if not more than that. We already have volunteers out in the field with petitions, and they can't hang on to them. We have to keep pushing out more and more. These are flying off the shelves. It's a volunteer effort right now, all hands on deck. And anybody we ask, this seems common sense. This already isn't a law. And the answer is no. In Michigan, you don't have to show your ID. You can sign an affidavit that says, I am who I say I am. And that's not election integrity, in my opinion, Steve.
Yeah, it's not. Let me ask you about this. All right, it takes money. And sadly, when things like this end up on the ballot, this and things like ranked choice voting, which may or may not make it to the ballot, I'm not sure it'll make it yet, but if it does, it'll be a bit problematic. It takes money, and what happens, in my experience, is those on the left show up with truckloads of money, and the people on the right show up with, their wallet and say, well, here's what I got. Why do we always get outspent? How do we get the message out there? How do we make sure you win if it makes it to the ballot?
Well, the beauty of this is, Steve, it's like you said, it's an 80-20 issue. This gets on the ballot, it's going to pass. And the folks that are helping with this effort have done it in other states. They've been extremely successful there. And so there's a winning team put together with Americans for Citizens Voting here in Michigan. And we have the team to do it, and it just got to get it across the finish line. And it's going to take everybody that believes in the cause to come on board.
All right, let's talk about the numbers here a little bit. How many signatures are you required to have?
So currently under the law, you need approximately 440,000 valid signatures to put it on the ballot. As you've seen in the past, you have to turn in significantly more than that just to cover your bases, to make sure you have a buffer there. So we're looking at somewhere between 600 and 650,000 signatures collected from voters across the state of Michigan that want to make sure our elections are secure and that we have voter integrity, that only citizens are voting, and that you show an ID when you vote.
And when did it get? And there's also a window of time to get it done. What's the window that we're in?
There's essentially a 180-day period where you have to collect the signatures, so 6 months. And that started. They launched the campaign at the end of July, so we're a couple weeks into it now. We're going to have through early next year, but like I said, we're seeing numbers coming in that are just blowing us away. People are hungry for this.
What have you seen so far? What are the numbers so far?
Well, we're not going to release those, but I mean, like I said, we have
you can't blame a guy for asking.
Out the grass. No, of course not. You're doing your job, Steve. But we have grassroots groups across the state, and for an example, we sent a bunch of petitions out to a few groups, and within 24 hours, they're saying you didn't send enough. Send 10 times more than that. We're going through them like hotcakes. So it's there's really a fervor out there for this.
And do you have, okay, and I got a listener here, Ralph just said, how and where can I sign the petition? He just chimed in. Where does he find it? Where does it, because he's in. You know, people listening to this program believe in what you're doing. I knew they would. If somebody's here listening today, how do they find you?
Great question, Ralph. MICHCOV.com. So that's MICHCOV.com. There's a volunteer sign up there. A team captain, you can be a regional captain. We offer trainings for all the people that want to circulate. It's a top-down organization run very well, and we're making sure the people that want to help us get signatures have the right information, have the right training, and do this right, because you know the other side, like you said, Steve, is going to bring a truckload of money, and they're going to try to knock this off the ballot, and we want to make sure we've essentially what President Trump said, flood the vote. Get as many signatures.
I want to make sure I got this website right, because apparently I typed it in wrong. Michigan what? M-I-C-H what?
M-I-C-H-C-O-V.
C-O-V.
V as in Victor.
Yeah, I got it. Charlie. Yeah. Other victory. All right, got it. Mish, C as in C-O-D, but in this case it's C-O-V. Greatly appreciated, Jeff. Keep the faith. Bring us an update when you can.
Will do. Thanks a lot, Steve. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, sir. All right, around the corner, the beautiful and talented Ivy will join me right here. Don't go anywhere. All right, a lot going on. In case you still needed that website, it's MichiganCOV.com. Citizen-only voting. Citizen-only voting, MichCOV.com. You can sign the petition. Apparently it's on fire. And look, being a citizen makes perfect sense to vote around here. Ivy's with me now. She's a citizen. She gets to vote. Wait, can I check your ID?
Yeah, okay. Good morning, Steve.
Hey, babe.
Yeah, I was born in Orlando.
Yeah.
I am a citizen of this country.
Well done.
Anyhow, have you heard this story about this, what is it, Josimar Cabrera? That, so this guy, he tells authorities that his wife is missing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's video.
And there's video of him carrying something that looks dragging and carrying something that looks like it's wrapped in a blanket, which is a Ring camera footage from another house.
Right. The neighbor's like, wait a second. I see him like dragging this blanket. And he's like struggling with this blanket that's got something in it, obviously.
And I don't know if Anthony has that video ready yet, but to play for people watching. But and you can play that just as B-roll with no sound. But so he reported her missing on August 12th.
There he is.
He's
dragging us into court. Well, dragging something to the courtyard. It could be a German Shepherd.
And then he was questioned. He offered various explanations. One, he said that she was detained by ICE.
Yeah.
And then the other was that she left for another relationship. So he continued to change his story.
But then.
And then his wife's body was found actually in the national forest.
In the Angeles National Forest, yeah.
Yeah, and then it was a very similar material that was seen in the video.
Gee, that's shocking.
Yeah.
So he killed her.
And so he flees to Peru with his kids. Apparently his mother, the maternal grandmother of those kids that are living in Peru, he was actually detained in Peru and questioned and then released because there wasn't any charges filed there. But they're trying to extradite him back to the United States.
Yeah.
But what a crazy story. I mean, people have lost their minds.
So speaking of that, did you hear this story?
Mm-hmm.
Governor DeSantis from your home state of Florida sent his I used the term Chuck Norris deputy to go get that fugitive truck driver, the one that killed those people in the minivan in South Carolina. He fled to California, this truck driver, because why?
They think it's a sanctuary
state. That's right. So, but DeSantis sends in this wounded veteran. You know, they call him Chuck Norris.
Mm-hmm.
So DeSantis says, "You're not going to hide in California. We're coming to get you." Mm-hmm. Let's see what Newsom says about that, because DeSantis says this guy will spend the rest of his life in prison in Florida.
So has he been detained?
You know, I'm not sure about that. I'm waiting for an update.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So they sent the Chuck Norris sheriff out there to go get him, bring him back to Florida so they can jail him and then prosecute him.
Yeah. You know, and look, this guy, how is it? He passed 2 of the 12 questions about English. He can't speak the language.
Mm-hmm.
And he could only identify 1 of 4 traffic signs. How would anybody in good conscience, I don't care if you're a lefty, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
How could you in good conscience put this guy on the road with your family?
Right. Yeah.
Come on,
well,
people.
I had just read a story too that, and I haven't verified if this was true or not yet, but that Trump actually has revoked the license for the company that actually hired him.
Yeah, the company has had its license taken away, the trucking company.
Right, because how can you as a company hiring someone,
well, wait
you
a
would
second.
think that through the process of hiring, you would decide, hey, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He can't even speak the language.
True, but in defense of the company, he shows up with a CDL. He actually had 2. He had one from Washington State.
Okay, Steve, but come on, you have a hiring process, do you not? I mean, you vet people that come into your company.
Well, and here's the other problem we talked about already. Who's the insurance company on this deal?
Oh, man.
Because they're going to say, no way are we covering you. That trucking company has real problems. I don't know what the company was called here.
Yeah. And there's like paperwork, that you fill out if you're if you are a foreign national, you have to fill out special paperwork that you have to submit to the United States government. So there are processes in place so that you can kind of keep this sort of stuff from happening. But
the other
I
thing
mean, I
is-
do agree on it, like you said, with the fake IDs for young people.
Sure.
There's no identifying the difference between those, even at law enforcement offices. So if that is also true for these CDLs, but in the same sense, I do believe that if in the interview process, if the guy can't speak English and he can't identify,
And here's the last part of it.
you know,
Trump has already signed an executive order requiring over-the-road truck drivers, 18-wheelers, those guys running those 10,000-ton vehicles down the highway, have to have English proficiency. That was signed, I think, back in June. So that's already required. And yet this guy was pulled over in New Mexico for speeding in June.
Oh, really?
They didn't give him the proficiency test. They let him go.
Wow.
This guy could have been stopped numerous times. But the big takeaway is he shouldn't be here in the first place.
He should have been revoked.
He shouldn't be here. He's an illegal
in the
alien.
June. Yeah.
Shouldn't be here in the first place. How many people have to die? How many?
Right. Well, there was another video I had just seen yesterday. Another guy driving a semi who there's a bystander taking video, and he's not able to communicate with authorities very well in English.
Yeah.
So that is a big problem.
Every day.
Clearly, it's kind of scary when you think about driving on the roads. We have enough
That was
distraction as it is on the roads. If you don't have people who can
Yeah, that-
actually
that was
drive
a-
these semi trucks, that's a huge hazard.
Another illegal from India is the video you're referring to.
Yeah.
I didn't realize we had so many drivers from India I didn't realize we had so many illegals from India in this country.
Well, actually, I think back to some videos that we had watched. Who was it? Oscar Del Blue, who was videotaping all of these guys. It wasn't just Mexican or South American. It's Chinese and Indian.
Vietnamese, Indonesian, Indian.
Yeah, all over the world they were coming across the border.
We have no idea who they are.
Exactly.
And they're on the road with you. They're driving 10,000-ton 18-wheelers down the road at 70 miles an hour at you and your family.
Be vigilant.
Oh,
Pay
be
attention.
vigilant, be aware.
Be
Love you,
careful.
Ivy. Thank you.
Love you.
Back after this. Yeah, another big day, of course. I like the wardrobe change right during the commercial break. Got a tie on. I'm going on TV here in a second with my friends at Real America's Voice. We do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays for a morning hit on American Sunrise. And then, of course, we're back with America's Voice Live every day at 3. I don't know what we're doing next week, because I'm covering the White House, so maybe I'm on America's Voice Live. I will be here on the morning program unless Donald Trump does something extraordinary early, which happens, at which point we'll make a game day decision. So then you'll know, right? Then you'll know. Game day decision with Donald John Trump. So I am looking forward to being there tomorrow. America's Voice, Free for All Friday. Get my head mixed up. Free for All Friday, brought to you by Patriot Mobile. Your chance to call in no matter where you are. We get calls from Alaska and Hawaii, sometimes around the world. You can join that conversation as well. America's Voice, you get to be heard tomorrow. Free for All Friday, brought to you by Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile, America's only Christian conservative wireless network, giving us the Patriot Mobile Common Sense hotline, 877-310-9966. Write that down so that you're ready tomorrow. We also take comments online, of course. Follow us on all the social media platforms. The big place where we're really moving a lot of our effort right now is YouTube. And it's growing over there. The folks on YouTube, good morning to you again today. Greatly appreciate your support. It is very much appreciated. And we hope that that community continues to grow. And the reason we're doing that, people tell us that YouTube seems to be the best platform as far as being technically sound and working well and doing, everything good. So there you go. Fight the good fight, keep the faith. God bless America, my friends. I'm Steve Gruber. This is the Steve Gruber Show. Who do you want in your foxhole again? Think about that. Make a good decision. And remember, only you can save America.